Hi, everyone. Good morning. Happy Sunday to you. Hope you are well, and I hope your families are well also. It's a beautiful Sunday in my part of the world, and I'm really excited to be spending some more time with you again. Again, I can't tell you how much I look forward to these streams. It's a lot of fun to be here with you. So, as you know, always, we are starting off with our global roll call. So, I would love to hear about where you're from, where you're joining us from. As always, the chat is available to see across multiple platforms. So we have people joining in from a variety of platforms so we can see each other's chat. But please let me know where you're from, the city and state and province, excuse me, in the country that you're joining from. We should be able to see the chats up here over my shoulder as soon as somebody wants to volunteer and put in a chat. I'm seeing a few people on Instagram and I think a couple on YouTube. But as those chats come up, we're going to start seeing where people are from and start forming some sort of a community. And also just to see the international nature of data science. I'm constantly amazed by my analytics that show, where people are joining from and the age ranges and the cities and things like that. It really just speaks to the dynamic nature of data science and the people that are interested in it really all around the world. So go ahead and join in. Send me your location. I'm already seeing at least one volunteer. Thank you for that, Talhar. But I always like to start with an opening note. And I want to really come back to the basics with today's opening note. And I want you to remember that data science at its very core is still about the application of the scientific method. Whenever you're in doubt, whenever you're unsure of what to do next or what your next steps are or whatever, always come back to the scientific method. That is what data science is all about. It's not about math formulas. It's not about code. It's not about another tutorial on YouTube. It's about following the scientific method. What is the data that's available to me? What is my initial exploration of the data tell me? What is a hypothesis I can form from that data? What are the tests I need for that? What is the code I need to create those tests? What do the results of those tests tell me? How do I interpret them? And then what does that mean for my hypothesis? Everything we're doing in data science is that, period. Everything else around it, Python, math, neural networks, AI, are the tools that you use for that. But at core, it's still about the scientific method. That's the skill, that's the differentiator that you bring to whatever project you're working on, whatever company you're working for, right? So don't confuse what data science is versus the tools that you're using for those tasks, right? So that's really what I kind of want to reinforce in today's opening note. That sometimes we get caught up in, I got to get this certification, I got to take this class. I hear that the interviews are asking about code. Forget all that. It's about the application of the scientific method. Data science is a science. So always center yourself back on that. And then everything else you do after that is just the tools that you use to execute the scientific method. But you're really always just doing the scientific method. So I hope you found that beneficial. If you want to share some notes on that, please let me know in the chat. I'm seeing quite a few people join in on the Instagram side, but don't be shy. Tell me where you're from. I've only had one volunteer so far to tell me where they're from. If you're joining us late, let us know where you're from, the city, state, country you're from. I'm already seeing some familiar names, but don't be afraid to tell me again to remind me where you're joining us from. But love to see you. Love to kick off like that. Okay. Street tennis. I see a question in there. Thank you so much for that. I'll come back to questions after we do the global roll call. But let's make sure that we're doing the roll call first and and see where people are coming from. All right, so let's go back. I'm seeing, let me highlight the chats here. Talhar says, hello, Dennis. I am from Pakistan and a completely beginner in data science. Okay, cool. Good to see you here. Your name rings a bell. I believe that you you asked me about data science without a degree. I think that was what you told me was one of your challenges, that you don't have a formal degree, but you want to make a move into data science. Let's come back and talk about that, okay? Feel free to remind me later in the chat if I forget, okay? Street tennis, I'm going to come back to your question. Let me just do some of the names here. Oh, Street Tennis says they are from Malaysia. Oh, very cool. Very cool. It must be super warm and super humid there. Kevin Benny says hi from India. You know, people always tell me they're from India, but they never tell me the city. I mean, I know that India is a big and diverse country, so let me know what city you're from. Karthi, good to see you. I believe you're also from India, if I remember right. Hello, Dennis. Hope you're doing good. Thank you for asking. I'm doing well, thank you. Yeah, just keeping busy in my part of the world. It's very hot, so it's a good time to be indoors in the air conditioning. Doing a lot of work. I have a variety of projects going on right now. In addition to the content that I do, and in addition to these live streams, I do have additional projects that I take on. Keeping up with family also. I have family that I'm close to, and this week is also a holiday week in the U.S. So, you know, we have a holiday coming up on Thursday. But yeah, I'm keeping busy and trying to keep cool. So thank you so much for asking. Mustafa, our man from Morocco. Hope you're well, my friend. Good to see you again. I know you're a big supporter, so thank you so much for being here. And Kevin shares Kannur, which is in the state of Kerala. Okay, very interesting. Well, welcome. Thanks for coming, Kevin. Connor Perkins says, hello, Dennis. I'm a Cambridge University student from England. Very cool. Welcome. Welcome. Cambridge is one of the better institutions in England, isn't it? So sounds like you're a pretty smart guy. So thanks for being here. I don't know how much you're going to learn from me if you're a smart guy, but I'll try my best. Maniam says, hi, Dennis. Thank you for your great content. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you saying that. I'm just sharing my experience. I don't know if it's any good or if people like it, but I appreciate you saying that. I'm a data analyst in Washington, D.C. and planning to switch to DS. All right, cool. What part of Washington, D.C.? I went to school in Washington, D.C. I lived in that area for 6 years. So let me know what part of D.C. or maybe you went out to school there. Maybe we went to the same school. Who knows? I don't know if you guys know this, but Washington, D.C. has a large number of universities. When I was there, I think it was 13 universities in the greater Washington, D.C. area. I don't think it's changed since then. But yeah, quite a few universities in the Washington, D.C. area. So let us know more about that, madam. So if I see other joiners on Instagram, if you guys, if this is your first time or you haven't done the global roll call yet, please go ahead and include your city, state, and country that you are participating from. Again, part of the reason I do this is to kind of keep everything inclusive. I don't want people to feel like they have to be some really amazing, experienced data scientist to participate. Anybody can participate in these live streams. You know, we're all at different levels. We're all at different experience levels with our practice of data science. So please, you know, don't be shy. Just let us know where you're from. Surya, I see your question, but let us know where you're from. Okay, so Madam says, I'm in College Park, Maryland. Okay, so I assume you're at UMC there, UMCP or whatever it goes by. Great university. My understanding is that they have a pretty solid, solid technology degrees from there. So good for you for being out in College Park. Let me see if there's anybody else. Okay, nobody else wants to introduce themselves. That's okay. So let me go back to starting with the questions. But please feel free to introduce yourself if you're coming in late. So Street Titans from Malaysia asks, can I work at a physics firm as DS experience? That depends. That depends a lot on the firm that you are joining. Do they need a data scientist? Is that something that they're offering you? I know that there's physicists who have made the move into data science, but a physics firm hiring you as a data scientist, I don't know. I think that's an individual situation. So, if you want to provide more detail on that, maybe, I could speak on that further. But it just depends. I mean, physics firms first of all, physics firms can mean anything, right? So maybe you want to provide more detail there. But yeah, I don't have firsthand experience with somebody going in that direction. Mustafa says, I'm reading the book Do Data Science. They give a very good definition. Oh, really? What is it? What is the definition that they provide? I'm curious. I'm not familiar with that particular book. And obviously, everybody's welcome to the interpretation. I'm just giving my interpretation because I see so many people, I get a lot of messages from you guys, through my accounts across all social media. And I see that, and that's the reason why I come up with these opening notes, that people just kind of get caught up, and maybe they're even getting caught up in definitions they read in books like this, right? But, don't be afraid to strip all of that away and just take down data science to its bare bones and just always refer back to the scientific method. I mean, I sincerely mean that. When I get stuck, or when you get stuck, it really pays to just stop and say, okay, well, what is it that I'm trying to do here? At what stage in the scientific method am I right now that I need to be adjusting for? I think that's really valuable because it just kind of helps to recenter you, right? And it takes away anybody else's opinion or tutorials or whatever. And it just helps you get back to saying, all right, what is it that I'm trying to accomplish here? And let's focus on that. I think that's super valuable to kind of break things down like that. All right, let me keep on going down the chat. Again, feel free to introduce yourself if you'd like to, if you're joining us. All right, Suri, I don't know if you told us where you're from, so let me know. Hi, Dennis. How to start DS as a student? What are the courses and industrial projects that has to be focused? It looks like you're joining us on YouTube, and I love that you can see the icons of where people are joining in from. I love that. So on YouTube, I have a data science guide. It's called my Data Science Roadmap for Students. It's one of the first videos I did because I get a lot of questions from students. I get this exact question from students. So that's one of the very first videos I created because I thought, okay, wow, this is going to be a repeating theme. A lot of people are going to ask me this. So I have an entire video. It's 20 minutes. It's one of my longest videos. I even issue a coding challenge. And by the way, nobody has come back with the coding challenge yet. I'm still waiting for that student. That's going to be a special student. But go through that video because I outline how I would study data science today. And then I also relate things that I did when I made a transition into data science, because a lot of those things are still applicable today. But please do that. You're welcome to do the coding challenge. But that's where I would start if you're, still a student or even if you're early in your career. Some people in the chat might be a little bit early in their career and they want to do something else. Feel free to look at that and go from there. Okay. Okay, so Karthi writes, and again, by the way, folks, if you're coming in, feel free to let us know where you're from. Even if you're a regular in the chat, it's always good to remind each other where we're from and all that. Let me know the city, state, and country that you're from. So Karthi writes, I have a question. When we do sentiment analysis, how do we analyze the actual interest towards a product rather than it being just the initial excitement that dies down? Okay. Couple things that I'm picking up from that question. One, you would have to further define what you mean by sentiment analysis. That can mean a lot of things. And we'll come back to that. So that's the first part. The second part is that when you're talking about towards a product rather than it being until the initial excitement dies down, you're no longer talking about sentiment analysis. You're talking about trend analysis there, right? So you're kind of combining two concepts in one. So I would be cautious there and ask you to consider if you're mixing two different concepts there, right? Because it's no longer sentiment there, it's trend there, right? And then that brings up a whole host of things, right? How often are you measuring that trend and the sampling, things along those lines. But coming back to the first part, I said I would come back to it. I don't know what kind of sentiment analysis you're doing, but I've seen a lot of companies kind of go a little bit off the rails here because they don't use enough categories, right? They always just say whether it's a positive or a negative sentiment. Or some cases you'll find somebody who does like a neutral sentiment, positive, neutral, and negative, right? Is that enough? Maybe, maybe not. I would say that maybe not, right? So I've seen very, very few instances where people do sentiment analysis across as a multi-category problem, right? Why does it only have to be 3 categories? Why isn't it 10 categories? There can be a lot of things that fall under a bucket of sentiment, right? That makes your algorithm more complex. It requires a lot more human validation, so on and so forth. But if you really want to do sentiment analysis, that's how you would do it. And there are companies that do that, by the way. I've done that. So yeah, it just depends on how you're going to approach it. So a couple things that you might want to think about, Karthi, right? But like I said, I think people just kind of fall into this pattern of, well, it's either positive, neutral, or negative. Well, I could think of like 10 other categories. I've done 10 other categories for clients, right? So think about that and, see if that expands you a little bit. AJ Patro. AJ, did you tell us where you were from? Let us know where you're from and I'll come back to your question. All right, Manjit says, hey, Dennis, I'm currently working on a tiny ML project for a completely offline analysis on ECG anomalies. Okay, cool. Sounds interesting. Do you believe such ideas are good practical usages of tiny ML? Well, sure. Yeah. I mean, offline needs are usually why tiny ML models are used, right? I remember, I can't remember if somebody asked me in a DM or on a chat or something, but somebody said that. They said, well, why would you ever need a tiny ML model? Well, because not everything's connected to the internet, right? There's a ton of air gap systems out there. It boggles my mind that people don't understand that, right? People just assume that they'll always have an internet connection. There'll always be a cloud available. And that's far from the case. And I've worked on plenty of systems where you don't have any external access. So yeah, I mean, tiny ML in that scenario sounds perfectly fine. I'm curious on what you're doing with ECG anomalies though. Yeah, so if there is more information you can share there, I'm curious about that. But yeah, a good practical use of TinyML, yeah, that's a pretty good example of it. And that's going to be one of the, probably one of the more common needs out there, right? For those disconnected systems. I know that there's other use cases out there besides disconnected systems. Sometimes it's just the hardware that you're given, right? Like I remember maybe, oh gosh, maybe 15 years ago, I used to work, maybe longer. I used to work for a company that did a lot of physical security, like gate systems and walls and ground sensors, all this stuff, right? And yeah, I mean, sometimes you'd have gates that are like miles and miles away in the middle of nowhere that you have to kind of control access for. So that's something where, the hardware is very, very limited, right? Because I mean, it doesn't take a lot of hardware to run a gate. A lot of times we were working on things like an Arduino or something very, very small. So, I mean, that's another example of where TinyML could work, right? We just have limited hardware because you're not going to put a server out in the middle of nowhere just to run a gate or something, right? But yeah, so I think that's a fine use. Thanks for the question. Interesting stuff. Samir Sen says, hey, Dennis, checking in from Lalitpur, Nepal. How are you doing this morning? Samir, I think you've joined us before. I think you're our man in Nepal, if I remember right. So yeah, thanks for coming back. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for asking. I appreciate when you guys ask that. I'm doing fantastic. Just busy with content for you guys. Busy with these live streams. It takes me about an hour to get ready for these live streams, believe it or not. Busy with client projects and other stuff I have going on. But yeah, doing well and really glad to see you here. So thanks for coming in. Nick Hot 27. Nick, did you tell us where you were from? I don't recognize your name or remember where you were from. I go to Washington University. Okay. what's your suggestion on a path that mixes both AI and robotics? Is there a path that mixes the two? I don't know. Robotics is a funny thing. I've done a couple of quick little 1-minute videos on this, and maybe I'll do a longer video. But I gotta tell you, Nick, I'm not one of it. How do I say this? It seems that a lot of people out there combine AI with robotics. They think, oh, AI is advancing, robotics is right behind. And I definitely don't think that's the case. I think robotics is super, super far away. Nowhere nearby. Right? People think, oh, we're just a couple of years from having droids in our house helping us out and all this. No, we are like decades away from that. And I'll tell you what leads me to that conclusion. A couple of years ago, I read this great book that was talking about machine learning and robotics and everything else. And it was talking about like the very, very few labs and researchers that are out there working on like true robotics. Like, to me, true robotics is about the human hand. The human hand, from a robotics perspective, is super, super difficult to do, right? Especially the wrist, right? Your wrist moves in so many angles, has a lot of strength. You can rotate it, you can angle it, right? To reproduce that from a like robotics perspective is insanely hard. And then it extends into the fingers, right? Your palm is very strong. Your fingers are very flexible, right? There's a lot of joints and bones and things like that, right? To replicate that with like, wires and servos and all that stuff that's needed, super difficult. It's super difficult. Very few people are working on it, right? Because think about it. Think about what the knowledge that researcher has to have. That researcher has to know about, material science. They have to know electrical engineering. They have to know about the human body. I mean, that's a super hard job, right? And when you think about it also, those fine motor skills is what we really need in robotics, right? When it comes to robotics, the gold standard I always use is like a fast fashion factory, right? I mean, if you look at those fast fashion factories, I mean, terrible human conditions, terrible industry that requires a lot of people doing a lot of work, right? So for me, like that's the dream. If you can use robots to replace a fast fashion factory, but that requires a lot of fine motor skills, right? And we are super, super far away from that. We are nowhere near that. Very few companies are looking at. So that's one of my pet peeves, right? If I'm going to share one of my biases with you guys, I absolutely hate being on Twitter and seeing these companies with the walking robots and the dancing robots examples and the robot dogs. That's all nonsense. We don't need any of that. When do we pay humans to just walk around? We don't. Generally speaking, we pay humans to sit and work with their hands and fingers, right? That's where you're going to get into the human benefit. And we are really, really far away from that. So, Nick, I don't think there's a clear path for that because again, I think that when you really break it down, AI will advance a lot further than robotics, a lot quicker than robotics. So I hope that's not discouraging to you. And I'll get off my soapbox now because, I probably didn't intend to go in that direction, but I would say that don't be quick to tie AI and robotics. They're really not nearly as joined as all the nonsense on Twitter will make you believe, because they're really not. I think all these companies are basically stealing from the venture capitalists because they're developing robots that we know aren't going to be used, right? That at core aren't going to be used. They make for great videos and they get 1 million views, but what I do when I see those views, I always say, show me the hands. What does the wrist look like? Because that is the sign of the advancement. I want to invest in the robotics companies that are advancing the wrist, because those are the companies that are going to win. All these other companies out there now, it's vaporware. It's not going to end up anywhere. All right, so that's enough on that answer. I hope that helps you, Nick. Olateye A, please let us know where you're from. I don't think I saw that. Hi, Dennis. I'm a medical doctor who has started learning data science. Great. And machine learning and hopes to find applications of data science to medicine. What specializations or pathways should I learn? That should be fairly easy. That's bioinformatics. Bioinformatics is the field that blends all of those items. There's conferences for bioinformatics. There's books on bioinformatics. But yeah, I mean, that's what I would recommend. That's the specialization you're talking about when you're talking about mixing, medicine, biology, data science, analytics, all of that. So, I think that would be a good one for you to look at. So I hope that helps. And let us know where you're from. And by the way, if you're still joining us, let us know the city, state, country that you're joining from. It's the global roll call. That way, everybody participates. You don't have to ask a complex data science question or be intimidated. Everybody can join in. All right. So Kevin writes, computer science graduate here, going to pursue my master's in data science at University of Minnesota after 2 years of working as a quality engineer at PwC. Great. Any advice or opinion would be great. I think that sounds like a wonderful path. I've worked with plenty of people from PwC, still have some friends there. Great company, so I think you're in a good spot there. I like the fact that you're going to create some work experience for you before going into your master's. Having said that, it's possible that you'll choose to change from a master's in DS to something else, right? Don't be afraid to make that shift if that's what's needed. Data science is not always for everyone. You think it might be, but maybe it is, maybe it's not. That either way, it's okay. But I like that you're taking the time to work and then kind of help you figure out some of those things, right? So good for you for doing that. And yeah, PwC is a great organization, really good people there. So advice or opinion, learn as much as you can. PwC has some very smart people working there. So learn as much as you can, get in as many client project experience as you can. The benefit of going to a place like PwC is that they should be able to expose you to a lot of industries, a lot of different projects. That's kind of why you go to work for PwC, right? I never worked for PwC. I worked on the IBM side for their equivalent. I work for IBM Global Services, which is basically their consulting side. So the level of work and the travel and all that is similar. But that's what I enjoyed, and I think that's what PwC will expose you to, just being able to, work across multiple industries and multiple roles, things along those lines. So good luck to you, Kevin. I think you're set up there on a good path. So you're on the right track there. Deveshri07, did you tell us where you're from? Let us know where you're from. How do I improve my Python coding skills for data science? Any roadmap? It depends. You'd have to tell us what level you're at. The way that I improved my skills early on is very different from how I would do it now, right? So if you want to tell us a little bit about your background, maybe you want to add some more in your background to the chat. But yeah, you'd have to tell us about what level you're at now. Because it sounds like you might have some Python, or maybe you just need a data science overall, so let us know. Hello, Sir Dennis. I am Amika. I hope I pronounced that right. I'm just starting out in data science, currently learning Python programming. Should I learn the language thoroughly, or should I focus on Python for data analytics? So I'll recommend my data science guide for students again. I think that's a good one for understanding that. But what I'll emphasize again to you, the goal is not to learn programming or Python. The goal is to be a data scientist. So if you're just starting out, as you say, then your goal should be to learn the methodology and the process and some of the theory behind data science. Coming back to my opening note, you should focus on learning the scientific method and how that applies. Because that's really what you're after. Python is just a convenient tool to help with that, right? So this is a good time to remind all of you that this Wednesday, I'll be hosting a live class on data science. First time I'm ever doing that. I never really intended to make this an instructional channel. I like presenting more leadership content. And I will never, ever, ever do pre-recorded instructional data science content because that's so boring. It's boring for me to create that, and it's boring for you guys to watch it. So instead, I'm going to do it live. I have a vague idea of what I'm going to show, but I'm going to take no notes. I'm going to do nothing. I'm just going to go for it live, and just make it more fun that way, right? Keep it sporting. So you're welcome to join, because I'll be focusing on similar topics to your question. Where you're just starting out, how do you actually get a project off the ground? That's what I want to focus on. And again, that's all I want to say about it, because I don't want to think about it. I don't want to develop notes. I'm not going to write anything down. But you're welcome to join. Anybody on this chat is welcome to join, because that's, if you really want to be a data scientist, then do the work of a data scientist. And that's not math and programming, right? That can be other things, right? So, you're welcome to join the class, but I encourage you to think about that, right? It's a mistake to jump right into programming. You should be thinking about, how do I become a data scientist? The real MJO? Or MHO, I don't know how you pronounce that. Hi, Dennis. I'm a pharmacist transitioning into data engineering from Cali. Oh, very cool. That's quite a transition. Did you join our chats before? Because I thought I had another pharmacist that was also looking at the same thing, and I thought that the field for pharmacy was pretty strong, isn't it? Aren't there like a lot of jobs in the pharmacy field? I thought that was one of the high in demand fields. So let me know. I'm curious about the motivations for that. I'm curious. So please let me know. AJ says, hi, I'm from Odisha, India. Very cool. Where is Odisha, India? Is that north, south? I'm not familiar with that city. Let me know. Satya says, hi. Hello, Satya. Good to see you again. Okay, so Karthi, I think, had previously wrote us about sentiment analysis. That's informative. The initial idea was to check the reaction of people towards the product and see if the investment towards the product should be increased towards it. Well, that sounds a lot more like trend analysis, right? So what is the case against doing that as a trend analysis project? Because if you're really looking for those changes over time, then that should be your primary algorithm. The sentiment side is only one of the ways to measure that. There's a lot of ways to measure what you're talking about, not just sentiment, right? So yeah, maybe that'll take you off in a different direction, okay? Charmant Nicholas, good to see you, my friend. I know you've joined a couple of streams, so thank you so much for being here. It's good to see you. That's right, you're our man in China, so I hope you're well in China. I'm assuming it's very late on that end. The way I always think about China is that I'm on the West Coast. New York is 3 hours ahead of me. So it's 11:30 in New York. And New York is usually 12 hours, the exact opposite across most of Asia and I think parts of Australia too. So that's what lets me to believe that right now it's pretty late in China. So thank you for joining us, Nicholas. Okay, so Deveshri says that they are a beginner and they are from India going to ASU for DS this fall. Okay, by ASU, I assume you mean Arizona State, which is great. My sister actually lived near ASU for the last couple of years. She recently moved, but I'm familiar with that campus, beautiful campus. I think you're going to have a great time there. It's wonderful to live in the desert. I live in the desert community also. So if you're getting ready for Python as a study course, I would recommend the roadmap that I have online. Again, it's on my YouTube. It's free. It's a long video. It's my longest video. And I have a coding challenge that would help you, but you'll notice that most of my focus is about understanding why you're doing data science and some of the things behind it that you should be focusing on, right? So again, it's not always the best idea to jump straight into programming. That's not data science. Data science is a practice. It's almost like an art form, right? Like somebody who is going to like law school to become a lawyer, like, yes, they might want to practice their writing because you're going to write a lot in law school, but like that's not what the law is, right? So I want you to kind of start thinking of it in those terms where, well, why am I doing this? Why do I need a neural network? Why do I need to learn how to code, right? Why is Python involved so heavily in data science? I want you to start thinking more about that because that's the stuff that the classes really aren't going to teach you, right? They'll teach you Python, right? I mean, that's kind of like what some of those courses are designed to do. They'll teach you regression methods. They'll teach you about neural networks. But what are they? Why would you use one over the other? How do you distinguish different business problems that need them, right? That's where I'd like to see you go a little bit more as you're preparing for a study program, okay? So I hope that helps. So again, if you're joining us a little bit later, please let us know the city, state, and country that you're from. You know, feel free to join in or feel free to ask questions that you might have. Getting lots of really good questions today. But let me know if there's something I can help you guys with. Rani Banayat says hi. Hey, Rani. Let us know where you're joining us from. I don't think I saw that from you, but glad to see you here. Thank you. Kevin writes, during my time at PwC, I've worked with a lot of data and was able to see how firms manage their data and make use of it. I am more familiar with data engineering and want to expand that knowledge. Okay, are you Kevin, was it also you that was already going to PwC, or were you replying to that? Okay, so you were the same person from PwC. I'm looking in my chat. Okay. So I am more familiar with data engineering and want to expand on that knowledge. Well, great. That sounds like a good plan. Data engineering is a very good way to start your overall data science career. What you don't get in a data engineering role is the modeling side. So that's, where I think most of your studies will I assume, will be focused. Because you're just not getting that from an engineering role, right? And engineering roles tend to be a little bit more programming based than some of the other roles, right? Not necessarily modeling based or like model tuning or things along those lines, right? Those are the things that you're kind of missing. But again, it sounds like you're on the right track, so I wish you luck with that. Okay, so Talhar writes, Dennis, I want to remind you about my question on can I get into data science without a degree? I think you can, but it's a little bit harder. It's a little bit harder because for a lot of companies out there, the baseline level, like the price of admission for most applications is going to be a degree of some kind. Now, that wouldn't stop you from doing things on your own, right? That wouldn't stop you from doing your own projects, maybe even your own freelance projects, right? So where I think that you could help yourself, Talhar, is by developing your own portfolio. And more specifically, try to develop a portfolio that's a little bit more contemporary, tackling contemporary topics that are, maybe in the news or whatnot. And again, I invite you to come to the Wednesday class, because this is exactly what I want to focus on for that class. I get a lot of questions like this. And I always say, well, you got to do the work of a data scientist. Well, I'm going to show you how to do that work, right? How I would approach it. So that's where I would focus for you, Talhar. Develop a portfolio that really shows that you know the work of a data scientist. So you're going to have to create something that's that's highly defined by steps and phases, right? Here's the article I read. Here's the data that I collected based on that. Here's what that data told me and the hypothesis I could create from that. Here's the experiments for that. Here's the code that I wrote for that. And here's my conclusion. Right? You're going to have a portfolio that literally breaks it out into all of those stages and does the work. that's what's going to help alleviate some of those concerns when they say, well, he didn't really go to college, right? So I hope that helps you. Try to not get discouraged, because I know it can be very discouraging, but do the work on your own. Do enough work where you could get hired as a freelance data scientist, because there are freelance contracts available, and kind of keep going down that path. But if data science really is for you, and it's something that you do feel strongly passionate about, you'll find a way, right? You'll make a way. So I think you're going to be just fine. Okay, so AJ writes, it's a southeastern part of India. Okay, very cool. Thanks for coming. Thanks for being here. Karthi says, yep, thank you for the advice. Well, I hope that helps, Karthi. I'm just sharing what I know, or what I think is true, my own biases, but hopefully it helps somebody. Deveshri says, thank you. Well, thank you too. Thanks for being here. Good luck at ASU. I think that's a fine school. I think you're going to have a good time out there in Arizona. It's a beautiful campus. Srikanth Shitampali, I think I said that right, says hello. Well, hello to you too. Let us know where you're from. AJ says, I am from geoinformatics. I want to move to script and data science based in geoinformatics rather than software. Does this make sense? Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's a growing field from my understanding. I mean, I don't have any direct experience, but my understanding is that these are very much growing fields. In fact, there was somebody else, in the chat a few weeks ago talking about how they were looking at doing this for natural resources companies, and working with that type of data. So yeah, I think it's a growing field. I think it totally makes sense to do that, to move away from existing software packages. So yeah, makes sense to me. Real Slim Shadi, good to see you, my friend. I know you support my content, so thank you so much. How would you set up a data science project in an organization that has moderate, I'm going to assume that's data maturity? Help me define what you mean by moderate data maturity. What exactly do you mean by that? Can you put a better definition on that? Help me understand that. And I'll try to help there. Kevin says, do you have a newsletter or something of that sort? No, I don't. And I have very little interest in putting together a newsletter. The closest I have to that is I have a podcast. It comes out every Monday. I filmed Monday's episode yesterday, and I basically cover 3 to 5 stories related to AI and data science that catch my eye. And I basically just talk through it. It's totally a conversational podcast. I don't make any edits, very, very few additions during the editing process. I just do one long take. I don't restart anything. So that's the closest I have to a newsletter. Otherwise, I do a bit of content during the week. I do these live streams, which are a lot of fun. The live streams are probably my favorite part of it, but I have very little interest in doing a newsletter. To me, I don't know, it just doesn't really excite me, and I don't like doing things that I'm not excited about, because then I ultimately won't do a good job at them, And I don't want to send any bad content your way. So no, I don't have a newsletter, but feel free to look at some of my other content out there, and it's something it's something that's not quite clear. Feel free to send me a message. All right, so let me go to the next question. I am a quantity surveyor. How do I get started in data science? What's a quantity surveyor? I'm not sure what that is. Is that like a land surveyor or like an auditor of some kind? Let me know, please. And actually, the next question could be relevant to you also, Michael. So Sharman says, where is the challenge posted? So that challenge is part of my guide that's on YouTube. It's called the Data Science Roadmap for Students. It's a 20-minute video on my YouTube channel. It's one of the very first videos that I published. So you can find the coding challenge in there. You kind of have to watch towards the end, right? But I really hope that people go through the entire video, because I kind of I intentionally walk people through the different stages of how you build your data science career, right? And again, I take it very seriously because I think it's something that, it's a profession that's serious, right? So you should be kind of like approaching it as something that you really want to do. So that's where you can find that. And again, I issue that challenge because I do think that it's important to have, certain books and certain exercises that you go through to kind of help you build some of those solid skills. So thanks for asking there, Nicholas, but you can find it in that. Steel Dark asks, can you please break it down what analysis are required for the project? Steel Dark, I don't think I got where you were from, but let me know what project you're referring to. I don't think you asked a previous question on a project. Let me know exactly what you're referring to, please, okay? Maybe just more clarification there. So Srinkas says that they are from India. Cool. Again, you guys always tell me India, but India is such a huge country. Tell me more. What part of India? Kevin says, where is the podcast available? The podcast is available on YouTube. They post it as a video and also as a podcast playlist, so you can find it there. But please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I put a lot of content out there. I put content out there on a daily basis, both shorts and long formats and podcasts. And these streams. I also put these streams on YouTube. But that's where you can find the podcast, and it comes out every Monday. And again, speaking of YouTube, if you guys want to join on Wednesday, I am hosting a data science class, but I'm going to do it completely live. No, I don't think anybody else out there is doing that, by the way. But as I said, I have zero interest in doing pre-recorded data science instructional content. That I just don't want to do it, and I don't do things that I don't want to do because then I'll give you guys poor content, and I don't want to do that. But I am interested in doing it as a live stream. So it's going to be a live stream just like you and I are talking now, but I'm going to be teaching you some things in how I approach data science projects. And like I said, that's all I'm going to plan out. I'm not writing anything down. I'm not thinking about it ahead of time. I blocked it out of my mind because I don't want to plan ahead. I just want to do it spontaneously. I'm going to have the chat open. You guys are going to be, giving me feedback. Maybe I'll make mistakes and you'll catch some mistakes that I do or whatever the case may be. You're going to be looking over my shoulder as I kind of piece together a project. So you're welcome to join for that. I think it's going to be fun. July 3rd, this Wednesday at 1500 GMT. So I hope you're able to join. Is it iLoner or eOner? Yoner 1. I want to do advanced maths for data science. Okay. What you think about people trying new mathematics and algorithm research for DSML? Sure. I mean, if that's something that interests you, go for it. My hesitation in something like that is, one, I don't think math is anywhere near as necessary as people make it out to be. I mean, quite frankly, to me, it feels like a lot of gatekeeping that people do, right? Like, oh, data science is so hard. No, it's not. We all use libraries, right? Nobody's out there is really writing formulas. If you're talking, but in this scenario, you're talking about advanced maths for data science. Yeah, you can try it. I just don't know. I'm always pessimistic on the long-term availability of jobs for that, right? Like worldwide, even on a global basis, how many jobs are there really for that type of research being done, right? Where you're creating brand new algorithms from scratch, right? I mean, first of all, you're severely limiting the number of companies that will even post those kinds of jobs, right? It's probably less than 10 worldwide. And then second, you're competing against some really big brains, right? Really a lot of big PhDs, right? You're also competing against some of the better data scientists around the world. And I'm referring to things like Kaggle competitions, right? Like, if you think about this, right? Like advanced maths and people trying new mathematics. When you say that, I think of a company like DataRobot, right? DataRobot actively hires like the top Kaggle people to go and write these proprietary formulas and algorithms that they then incorporate into their products, right? How many of those jobs are there going to be? Like how many people can be at the top of a Kaggle competition to catch data robot's eye, right? So, obviously I don't want to discourage you if this is what your passion and your practice of data science is calling for. I'm just always pessimistic on what the long-term prospects for that are. And also because I like to see my work used. I like to see my work out there. A lot of this research never even ends up getting used, right? A lot of it, ends up kind of being theoretical or being very, very niche applications, right? Like some military application that nobody else will ever even hear about or need or want, right? Like, to me, that's unsatisfying from like a job satisfaction perspective. So that's kind of like what I would tell you. But, if that's the direction you want to go, then, go for it. I mean, it sounds interesting. Just let us know how it turns out. All right, so Steel Dark says, I'm not sure if this is a follow-up, but you say, can you please share how to use AI to make projects? Okay. Most business leaders say that future tech skills will be obsolete and only domain expertise will be valuable. Could you give us a source on that? Because I'm not sure if I agree with that sentiment. Can you please share how to use AI to make projects? So my video on YouTube from a week ago talks about this. I believe that in the future, and by the future I mean within the next year to 2 years, you shouldn't be starting coding projects or data science projects with a blank screen. You should be starting with code that AI wrote for you. So the way you use AI is to work on your prompt engineering skills and work on instructing AI how to write and refine the code for you, or at least get it to a state where you can be more of an editor than a creator of code. So what does that mean? Well, it means that you need to have senior developer skills, right? Because now you're not writing your own code, you're evaluating code, and that's something that you kind of need to know what you're doing to do that. And the second thing is that you're going to have to learn how to be like a software architect. You're going to have to think about it as a software architect, because you can't direct the AI to write code for you unless you know the different pieces that you're going to need. So you're going to have to be able to have the awareness to sit there and say, okay, well, if I need to do this project, then I really need this. And then if I need that, that means that's going to consist of 3 different objects. Each one is its own class. I need to get the 3 classes written. This is how the classes are going to communicate with each other. This is what my logic layer looks like, so on and so forth, right? So you're going to have to be able to architect that out and then go instruct, ChatGPT or whatever to write that for you. You need to be able to recognize the errors that ChatGPT is making and say, no, I need you to fix this method, or I need you to fix this. Decide when that code is at a viable state, and then you go and implement it as a senior software developer, not as a junior that's writing code, right? So I think that's how you'll be using AI in the future. I think you'll be using it, as an assistant to you, but as an assistant after you've already done the architecture design and are able to edit the code. Okay? So I hope that makes sense to you. It sounds like you're, kind of still early in your career and kind of start trying to piece different things together, and that's okay. But, start using AI as an assistant to help you develop pieces of code on your own, because that's really kind of where I think it's going. And again, I'd like to see a source on your second statement, because I don't necessarily agree about domain expertise. Domain expertise is always a double-edged sword to me, right? I think it's very healthy for you as a data scientist and for companies to hire data scientists that are outside of their domain. If you don't look outside your domain, then you'll never come up with an innovative solution, right? So, I always try to look at these different things and, kind of help you guys think about things in a different way, because, not everything is always as it seems in the world of data science, right? There's different approaches you can carry out and execute when it comes to the real world. Okay, I'm keeping an eye on the time. Instagram is about to cut me off here. So I'm going to have to stop there. But I do want to remind you, Wednesday, July 3rd, this coming Wednesday, 1500 GMT, my first time ever, I'm going to do a data science class. So I'm going to do it live on a live stream just like this. Here's the key, guys. I can only do it on YouTube because I have a feeling it's going to take longer than an hour. And Instagram cuts me off at an hour. So it's going to only be on YouTube. I've posted links on my Instagram. Go there, sign up, click on the notify button, and it'll send you a little message. I'm going to do a 10-minute behind the scenes pre-show so you guys can see how I'm getting ready. I'm going to do that on Instagram to kind of remind you of it, but you ultimately need to watch on YouTube. I'm only going to broadcast it on YouTube. So please make sure you join there. But otherwise, I want to thank you all for joining. It's been a really great level of questions, so really appreciate you guys joining. I hope that you are safe in your part of the world. Keep cool out there. I know it's hot in most parts of the world. So take care of yourselves, take care of your families, and I'll see you Wednesday at 1500 GMT. But thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.